Okay, I think we can get started here. Robin, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jared. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robin Vitus. I am a account manager here at Ontech Systems. This afternoon, joining me will be Jared Olson, who is our cloud services manager, and Mark Farrow, who is a senior tech here for us, and also our security lead. We're going to touch on a few different areas today, but all of them kind of falling under the managed security services for businesses, with a stronger focus today on the Fortify solution. Let me try to get to the next slide for you. Sorry. There we go. Hold on a second. Thanks for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Trust me, it's really worth waiting for. All right, so I've already gone through introductions. We're really going to try not today to just PowerPoint you to death and read things right off of the slides. I know as a sales rep that is not something that engages me. In addition, you also didn't show up today here to hear a sales rep speak. So as quickly as possible, I'm going to turn this over to our resources that are actually going to show you a little bit more value than I do today. We do these Learn on Lunch event series on a regular basis. I encourage you to please look at our website to see the rest of the schedule for the year. I'm going to be covering today very quickly some SMB cybersecurity risks, some statistics. I'm going to turn it over to Jared then, who's going to outline some ways to protect your business from a cyber attack, review very quickly the NIST control framework, and then Mark's going to dovetail in on that, and they're going to go over our managed security suite, which is also known right now as Fortify. Just a brief overview of that. Again, it'll come back to me where I'll just go over the importance of security assessments. We'll share with you some helpful links, and then at the end, we'll close it out with a Q&A. Again, like I said, we don't want to PowerPoint you to death, and we would like this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, stop us at any time. Anything along the way, we will be more than happy to address any questions or further information you might need. With that, I'm just going to go into it. This is, as I referred to earlier, our Learn on Lunch series that we do regularly. With the COVID situation, they kind of, this is our later in the year schedule, September through December for the rest of the year. You can also find these on, I believe, before I open my mouth on here, they're also listed on Meetups and Evite, so you can find links to us on there as well. I'm sure all of you have been inundated with facts and figures about cybersecurity risks. And again, I'll leave these up there for you to read, but there are a few that are worth bringing to your attention. The impact of not having adequate cybersecurity in place, like I said, is these statistics. We're finding that a very small percentage of SMBs are actually profitable after the data breach. It takes them a very long time to recover from that, and in some cases they just don't. From a management perspective, I understand my clients are dealing with trying to justify cybersecurity costs versus the benefits and what they need to do. That's the biggest challenge on all of these. Something to just keep in mind is that 1 out of 5 SMBs are targets of cyber attacks. Some quick statistics for you. Again, there are a lot of phishing. There are given the long-term shift towards remote work, This was happening even before COVID-19. Endpoint security has been, it's been a key consideration for a long time now, well over a year. Endpoint security solutions we rely on right now are kind of flawed. And Mark and Jared are going to get into that a little bit down the line, but it's definitely a layered approach on these. But what I want you to walk away from on these statistics is that, let me just, I'm sorry, I absolutely lost my place on this. Let me grab the next slide. There you go. The point I wanted to make and that I lost and that you'll see a lot on this slide is the word phishing. 91% of cyber attacks start with phishing. 93% of phishing emails involve ransomware. That is a big, not only a buzzword, but it is something that's affected everything that we pretty much do in this industry. Phishing attacks are getting larger and larger, and ransomware attacks are getting more and more sophisticated. These people have found that doing these things have become very profitable. So there is definitely benefit for them to try and get a hold of your business, the intelligence that you've built up in that business, and hold it for ransom. This is, there's a stat on here that absolutely, it's hard for me to even say, but 68% experience endpoint attacks that compromise their data assets. Your data assets are your corporate intelligence. That is the very essence of your business. 68% is, to me, an astounding number. Through some trend reports that we're looking at, 42% at any given time of these endpoints are unprotected. 70% of the breaches originate at the endpoint. Again, a lot of statistics, but they absolutely point to a very clear picture. This one's kind of an eye chart, but at the very top is what I feel is, if you walk away from anything today, realize that the threat landscape has completely changed. From February 23rd to March 16th, there were 145 threats per 1,000 endpoint, up from 30. Just let that sit there for a second. 30 up to 140. COVID-19 has changed everything for us. People have been, you've had to be nimble and quick. There are the bad guys, for lack of a better word, absolutely realize that that is the landscape, and that's why they're coming and attacking at this point. This is perfect for them. They know that things are in flux, that people haven't locked things down yet, that they might not even know what they don't have locked down. That's kind of what we're going to show you in the next couple slides and with the rest of this presentation. I promised you I wouldn't talk you to death, and I won't. And I am going to turn it over right now to Jared, who again is our cloud service manager. He has seen a lot of cyber attacks, and he has seen a lot of ways to protect against them. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Jared.
Thank you very much, Robin. Appreciate the introduction. So as Robin stated, I'm our cloud services manager. I also manage our managed services offering, which helps protect endpoints with security patches from Microsoft, antivirus, up-down monitoring, and a lot of the security related items that we're going to be talking about today. So thanks for the intro there, Robin. There's some definitely wonderful statistics on there. I wanted to leave that screen up for a second. I think one of the things that I look at as a critical statistic, Robin, that you put up here was it takes companies on average about 197 days to even identify and about 69 days to contain a breach. And this is according to IBM. So just let that sit in for a second, that if you're not doing anything proactively, if we don't we're not adapting to the landscape that's out there and the threats that exist out there, a lot of times what happens is these bad actors or hackers, if you will kind of penetrate into the network, will sit on the network and wait, they'll learn the network, and then they'll pick their points to inject the bad software that they're looking to inject. So that might be ransomware, it might be malware, it might be other things that could steal data, steal information. And without proactive software and adaptive software that's aware of some of these new threats, these threats can sit on your environment for quite a long time before they actually execute and before they're detected. So I think that's a very good statistic to bring up. I think additionally, what I'd like to point out is that SMBs are small businesses, small to medium businesses are widely targeted because the perception from them is that they possess fewer security capabilities and they can't afford it or they're not a target. Well, that's absolutely not the case. That's who the hackers are going after predominantly because they know that they are an easy target. So let's go ahead and get into some of the ways that you can protect your business. We don't want this to be all about the bad news and all the bad things that are going on out there, but let's face the reality that there are things that we can do proactively to protect our business from cyber attack. So here are kind of the top 15 things that we look for. You can read through the screens, but what we're predominantly talking about today is the highlighted items here, which is what our Fortify solution brings. So as Robin stated earlier, security is and always will be a layered approach. There's no one solution, two solutions, three solutions, one vendor that's going to bring cybersecurity into your environment and completely protect you from everything. You've got to be thinking about what are you doing on your email side of things? How are you protecting your users from receiving phishing emails that could lead to ransomware? You've got to have good password management. You've got to have multi-factor authentication is something that should absolutely unequivocally be put on any system that if it has the capability of running it, it needs to be put in place. Computer updates, I talked a little bit about that earlier, that our patching system from our managed services gives us the ability to protect servers and workstations from known vulnerabilities that the bad guys are out there looking to exploit. So when Microsoft, as we all know, has vulnerabilities in their software, and a lot of us rely on that software on a day-to-day to be productive. So we may be using Outlook, we may be using Word and Excel, and we've got Windows 10 or Windows 7 or whatever the software is that we're getting from Microsoft. There's known vulnerabilities in it. The hackers know this. They're looking to exploit those vulnerabilities. And without the ability to patch your systems and plug those holes in the levee, essentially, you're putting yourself more at risk. There's obviously other things in those layers that you need to be looking at, from keeping your email, your internet gateway secure. So when people are browsing the internet, you've got some level of protection there that's looking at the anomalous activity and security alerts that it can block actively as they're going on. Mobile device security is another one that a lot of people look at, is what would happen if a device got stolen from an employee, or a laptop sitting at a Starbucks or an airport and gets taken. How do you know that your intellectual property and your business data is not being taken and exploited and used by somebody? So mobile device security is important, and obviously firewall, encryption, and backup are critical as well. But back to what we're focused on today, we're going to be talking about security awareness training. Training is absolutely one of the number one things that any business should be looking at doing. Is Robin sometimes calls it the human firewall. How do your users then not know to avoid, or how do they know to avoid phishing emails, or how do they know to watch out for suspicious links in emails, or banks asking them for passwords in email? Without awareness training and without some education program for your employees, you're absolutely preventing that number one human firewall from being able to make a good educated decision on whether or not this is something suspicious or is it not suspicious. The other three pieces of the Fortify solution are going to be advanced endpoint detection and response. So that's great. We can detect a problem, but what do we do when we detect a problem? How can we proactively block that from injecting itself into your network and reaching to your critical business data? Dark web research, that's something that's probably not as commonly known out there, but if you don't know what the dark web is basically a marketplace for hackers to go buy information from people. So when there's an Equifax breach, there's a Home Depot breach, there's a Target breach, the hackers will take that information that they've taken, credit card information, personal identifiable information, and they'll put it on the internet to sell it to somebody. And groups of hackers, whether they're nation states, so Korea, China, all the nation states that are looking for our intellectual property and looking to affect our supply chain and our ability to do effective business, the dark web research will allow us to look out there and see, do we have anything exposed for username and a password that might exist that they could gain access to? So being able to know what's out there and know what's published is part of the battle. If you don't know what's out there, you can't really target what you need to be doing from a business perspective. And the last piece of this is what we call, or what the industry calls, SIEM, or log management. I would say this is more related to cybersecurity and insurance. It's more related to compliance requirements. So if you have PCI requirements because you're doing credit card transactions, if you have HIPAA compliance because you're dealing with electronic personal identifiable information, if you are a municipality and you might have a police department, there's requirements and compliance needs that you have to maintain and you have to supply to maintain compliance, so you can avoid fines and fees from the regulating bodies that exist out there. So we're going to break into some of those solutions and talk a little bit more about them, but I wanted to show you somewhat of the control framework that we leverage as we're looking to build better security practices for ourselves and for our clients. There's different elements that relate to how you can control your cybersecurity risk. Some of them are going to be administrative, policies that define what the roles are, acceptable use policies for your employees. Can you take your laptop home and connect it to your Wi-Fi and not have a VPN? Do you need disk encryption? There's all these things that you can provide your staff on. This is how we want you to use the technology that we have, and here's why. So there's the administrative pieces, and then at the bottom, there's obviously physical pieces. So do you have locks on your server room doors? Do you have security cameras on the outside? Are you able to control the access to the network and make sure that people in the accounting department are the only people that can access the accounting data, and the people in the HR department are the only people that can access the HR data? A lot of companies out there, for simplicity, just allow their employees to access everything. But the risk there is if an employee in the shipping department that doesn't need access to accounting or HR has access to those files and they get infected with some malware or ransomware, the bad actors or the hackers are able to use that access to laterally move within the network and gain access to things that they shouldn't be gaining access to. So that's some access control is huge. But the piece we're more talking about today is what can you do from a technical perspective? What solutions can you put in place that are backed by technology that can give you a level of protection that the other pieces cannot give you? And I'm just going to point to a few of the items that we're going to be talking about today. One is going to be secure DNS, advanced endpoint remote management, advanced endpoint network and SIM, and then how do we respond to when we see something that looks suspicious, and how do we recover from an incident that maybe we weren't able to fully proactively prevent? There's a recovery aspect of that too. So I am going to turn it over to Mark Farrow, who is our security lead here, and he's going to walk you through a little bit more behind the scenes of what our Fortify Security Suite offers. And let me mute my mic here for a second, and Mark's going to take over.
Thanks, Jared. Okay. So, like Jared and Robin was said, um, I'm a senior tech here, but I'm also the security lead. So I'm developing and heading up the cybersecurity portion of the offerings that we have for clients. And let's go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, so ransomware and phishing, social engineering, malware, all of that are more prevalent than ever, especially in this COVID environment that we have. And we're all much more focused on our computers than we were in the past. But even still, it was becoming a much more prevalent and more common way to do business and a way to carry on our daily lives. In order to protect our clients the best we can, we've partnered with various vendors who provide the best cybersecurity protection solutions that we've been able to find. And in doing so, we as Ontech are, well, we're confident that we're going to be providing you with a solid and secure solution that protects your data and your infrastructure as best as we can, as best as can be done. So we have, as you see in this little graph down here, it's not just one piece, but it's a lot of pieces that all work together to provide the best solution possible. The way security in computers works now, it's not just an antivirus client on your desktop or on your laptop, and that's all you've got. Or maybe you've got an antivirus and a firewall. Well, one or two layers in the past was what we felt were sufficient to protect us from those sorts of environments or those sorts of things or events. But nowadays, things are much, attacks and malware and the people who want to do bad out there are finding more and more ways to get around a single solution or a single piece of security. And so, like this picture down on the bottom left shows, layers are like Swiss cheese. No single layer is going to protect you from everything, but the more layers that you can put in front of or in between your data and your infrastructure and the outside world or the bad things, the better it is going to protect you overall. So just a quick reference to these. I mean, it's the security awareness training of the people who work for you, the DNS protection to provide a layer of security against your company employees that are doing business on the web on a daily basis, and they go to places on the web that are safe, and they're protected from places that our security solution has determined are not as safe as possible. Fortify for Endpoint is more than just an antivirus client on the endpoint, which is an endpoint is your desktop or your server or your laptop or what you use and interact with to get out to the internet or get to your data and stuff. Fortify for Network is your network environment and the way your computers interact with each other. That's all monitored and secured. And as Jared brushed on before about the dark web scanning, to make sure that your information from your company is not out there being solicited or being sold out to those who wish to do bad. And Office 365 Risk Watch is just an added layer of security on an Office 365 Exchange or email solution in your environment. So with DNS protection and security awareness training, the Secure Anywhere DNS is the solution or part of the layer, one of the layers of security that looks at where you're trying to go out on the internet and It actively filters the URLs or the malicious sites that have been determined by course of action through other clients that have been trying to go to those places and having bad things happen, or it goes through an algorithm of tools that our security operations center has used to deduce or find these malicious sites, and then it constantly updates that filter, which protects you from going to those sites. And by doing so, it can reduce the number of malware threats that you see or you get and end up getting attacked by up to 90%. We can't express enough how important it is for security awareness training. And in the next couple of slides, we're going to go on to the fact that we offer a bunch of training in various solutions or various flavors. But the biggest portion of the potential harm that can come to your company is through your employees not intentionally, but accidentally clicking on a link or opening an email, then clicking on a link in an email or going to a website that is infected with a malicious script or something, and then bringing that through your firewall or through your layers of protection manually to do harm or get onto your network that can then infect your systems. And so you prevent that by educating your users how to prevent or how to seek out or look at an email that looks suspicious and find out why those things look suspicious, or which websites are not the best intended places to go. And so we offer a phishing simulator, which is basically a campaign of emails that is sent out to your users that test them, or they look like they're legitimate emails that are from legitimate sources, but they're actually something that will take you to a site that can get information from them and then open up a door to your environment, or get information from them to do damage to your environment. So our simulator simulates that kind of email that you would get from them, and then it actually takes them to a training course, or it takes them to a page that says you clicked on this and you shouldn't have, and this is why. And then it also gives us a report, or it feeds back to us the information of who clicked on what and how far they got into the email, or when they or when they stopped, and then we can present that to you in a report form and go over it and decide the next steps in the best way to help prevent that from happening in the future. And we do that by having these courses that we have in our library that will educate your users on how to stop or how to detect the bad emails that'll come out, or the bad websites. So, but with the way things are changing so rapidly, and the way the people who want to do bad are figuring out new ways to get around the new security levels that are put in front of them, all of those things are changing rapidly and dynamically. So it's important for your users to continually learn the new, the changes to those things, and the new and how to look for the new things that are going to be trying to be used against them. Let's see. So if you focus on your users as part of the vulnerability, it's computers can be set to do one particular thing, or they can be programmed. They are as effective as their programming, and network infrastructure that provides security are as effective as their updates and their links to get, or their continued monitoring to protect or add their layer of protection. And just like those, your users can be the weakest link in the security chain if they're not educated or brought up to speed or updated, like the firmware updates in your firewall or the latest antivirus detection patterns plugged into your endpoint antivirus. So they need to be taught those newest, latest, and worst things as opposed to latest and greatest. But education of your end users has been shown to quantifiably reduce the amount of malware or the amount of phishing email successes that can happen or impact your company. The more you train them, the better they are prepared to protect your infrastructure and your environment from the stuff that is sent to them. So it doesn't just, this is all information that is kind of global and universal. It doesn't affect super large enterprise corporations. It infects the small, it happens to the small businesses, the mom and pop stores, the smaller environments of 10 to 20 to 30 people, as much as it'll affect the 10 to 20 to 30,000 people. An open door is an open door, no matter where, no matter what kind of building it's on. So as long as you can keep that door closed and keep the lock locked, it's a much more secure environment, no matter the size. So I'm going to hand it back to Jared for the next set of information.
Thank you, Mark. Some really good information there. People, process, and technology are all parts of those layers as well. So really good information there, Mark. I'm just going to switch to something over on my end here, so bear with me a second. Okay. So I talked earlier about some of the technology pieces. We've talked about the people, we've talked about some of the process and some of the administrative things and physical things that you can do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about detection and response and how our specific tools, which is our managed security suite, we're calling it Fortify for right now, but it's ultimately just part of our managed security suite. And two pieces of those layers are very important that a lot of companies aren't doing right now that we are providing through our Fortify solution, and that is the detection and response. So let me first start by saying that the detection and response is not just coming from the 15 or so technicians that Ontech has. This is coming from a security operations center that we have backed by us, that is US based, has trained individuals that are looking at the detection and the response of how businesses and their customers should be handling detection and response. So Mark's going to talk a little bit about our security operations center and how it operates and how it can be effective with the combination of software and humans to respond to something that gets detected. So on this particular slide, you'll see that this detection piece is showing that from China at some destination, it was connecting to one of our endpoints. Well, this isn't a live real example. This is more or less a statistical information and just showing you on the back end somewhat how it works. So we're detecting that there's this connection coming in from China and it's trying to access one of our devices. How do we prevent that? We look at the activity and the behavior of that connection. So if it's a valid connection, our SOC is looking at that and they're determining that, okay, this is a real connection, it's required, it's something that this company may be doing business in China, they may have a user in China, or they may say, wait a second, this is very suspicious. It looks like they're actually trying to, if you see, I don't know if you can see it, but it says attack storyline. It'll actually show what process and what system is being targeted from a malware or ransomware perspective. So it's really hard to read here, but it looks like Outlook is pointing back to Microsoft Word, and it's also pointing back to some processes that don't look normal, or they're abnormal to the system, especially this command prompt here, the CLI interpreter. It's pretty uncommon that a connection would come in from China from a user, and they would be using Outlook to leverage Word and also put some executable file in there that's pulling up a remote command prompt. To our system, we're looking at that as, okay, we've detected the connection. What we're looking at is, what are they trying to do? This is not normal activity, so let's go ahead and prevent that activity from happening. Over on the far right side at the top, you'll see the analysis that we've performed on that particular payload. Payload is the virus that they're trying to deploy. So we're able to see that this nuclear payload Tesla crypt.exe is trying to execute on this system. Let's say, for instance, it actually was able to get all the way through. Our tools have phenomenal capabilities to actually roll back that ransomware. So we leverage some technology that already exists on a lot of computers out there to say, we've detected this attempt, maybe it got through, maybe pieces of it got through, but we were able to stop 90% of it. Let's go ahead and take that and roll that back to where we were 15 minutes ago. And then, like Mark alluded to earlier, our threat intelligence system that runs in the cloud that feeds information from global sources that are seeing types of attacks that are going on in enterprise businesses, small businesses, businesses that are manufacturers, financial, banks, it doesn't matter. That information's feeding into our system, and we're able to learn from that and proactively prevent future instances of ransomware. And then from a forensic standpoint, we're able to actually look here that what most likely happened was this user received an email, got a Word document, they may have opened it, and that's that phishing that Mark was talking about earlier. And in the process of opening what looks like just a simple shipment document, it's actually not really a shipment document. It's hidden to run this proxy access or this proxy process executable that's trying to open up a back door or open up one of those doors Mark was talking about shutting to the attacker so that they can come in here and actually do something bad. This piece, the installed a low-level keylogger. If you don't know what a keylogger is just a program that tracks the typing that you do on your computer. So let's say I go to my bank account, and whether it's my corporate account or my personal account from my work computer, and I start typing in my password, my username and password, this keylogger is running in the background, unbeknownst to the end user, and tracking all that information. So let's say I open up my Outlook and I put in my email password. Well, even if I don't put in my email password, it's there. They're able to gain entry into that system. If I go to one of my vendor sites where I have some intellectual property, maybe it's a cut sheet for a program that we run or something that really makes our business run, those are the things that they're looking for. They're able to track your keys, see what you're typing in, and then if they get your password, they're able to back out of that system and go do whatever it is they want to do with that information, whether that's selling it to the dark web or actually logging in and stealing that information. We have some customers that have to be compliant with military regulations and things like that. They may be building blueprints for tanks, or they may have be providing a certain piece of U.S. military equipment, drive shafts, engines, whatever it might be. Those are what those nation states are looking for, is how can we steal some of the United States' intellectual property and use that to our advantage. And then at the very bottom, you see that there's a waitfor.exe process. This is probably in a way to provide that attacker an ability to get back in after the fact. So once they leave the network, they're putting something in there that allows them to then still take over that machine at a later date. And the biggest piece of this is a lot of this is going to go undetected to a user. If I received an email and open a shipping document, I'm not seeing the back end processes. I'm not seeing that they put a keylogger on there. I'm not seeing really any of this. I'm just a normal user trying to do my job. But the attacks have gotten sophisticated enough to disguise themselves from what an end user would traditionally see. So some of you may know that there's been instances where you'll open an email and you get a window that pops up and says you're being watched by the FBI. Well, that's something that user is going to visibly see, and they're going to go to their IT department and say, hey, something's going on here. But the really scary ones are the ones that run in the background with nothing visible to the end user. And that's where we talked about earlier with the 197 days to detect an issue. If you're not running something like this and the attackers are not presenting the user with a problem, they're not even going to know that they've been infected. You're not even going to know that the ransomware is probably already starting on your network. It's going through the system, it's getting onto your servers, and that leads to business outages, lost money, lost productivity, lost wages. Really can cripple any business, whether it's an enterprise or a small business. I'm sure maybe some of you have seen the cities that have had attacks like this cripple their infrastructure. City of Baltimore, there's hospitals, like I said earlier, with Equifax and Home Depot and Target. These are all large-scale initiatives that had a major impact. So let me go ahead and run to the next slide. So Fortify for Endpoint. This one is a really phenomenal tool because it's utilizing, at the protection level, it's using artificial intelligence to prevent attacks. So it's trying to prevent attacks before they're able to execute. And although it may be able to stop 95, 99, whatever the percentage is of attacks, there are times that, like right in here in that previous example, this is a W for Word document. You can see here this hashed line that goes through. It actually was not detected, or not protected rather. It wasn't stopped before it came in by the static artificial intelligence, but this next layer steps in and detects behavior. So it uses its artificial intelligence and and the data that's been fed through millions and millions of endpoints to monitor and map each running process for incongruous behaviors. And those are some of the behaviors I showed you in the ransomware piece on the last slide, with some of the things that are happening in the background that a user or a human being wouldn't even be able to see without a type of software like this. So we've got the protection piece, whatever slips through, we've got the detection piece, and then if something slips through even that layer, something that may be a brand new attack that has not been seen by the threat intelligence before and it's not part of our artificial intelligence, that's where we've got an endpoint detection and response. So we've got ability to automate the remediation and the response and even roll back in an instance that something was a brand new attack that's nobody's aware of out there right now, that hackers have just started to exploit. We've got that element. And this Fortify for Endpoint, it is backed by our Security Operations Center. So again, it's not just Ontech looking at this. There's a massive network of people that are helping, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of how they're trained and how they're security experts in the industry later. I wanted to pull up a quick dark web report example here. And it might be a little difficult to see, but this was run on, so Ontech, we used to be ontechsys.com was our primary email domain and our web domain. We bought ontech.com from a company that was making some kind of coffee cup warmers or things that, I don't know exactly what they did, but we bought the domain from them and we were waiting for quite a while. So the part I'm going to show is for ontech.com here. If you guys can see it, I'm going to scroll in. So this is an evaluation that we ran internally. We run this internally. We eat our own vegetables. We don't just tell our clients to, make sure you're eating your broccoli and your greens and everything else. We actually do it as well. So the dark web is a massive and wide used marketplace by cyber criminals. We talked about that earlier. Malicious actors use stolen email credentials to impersonate the owner of a company to lead to theft and other fraud. And then stolen records are included in the identity and credit card information are often stolen on the dark web. So the reason I was talking about us taking this domain from somebody else is these are more or less past IDs and passwords that were found before Ontech owned the domain. We've never had an Angelo or a Becky. We definitely have an IT account. James Drake, not a person at Ontech, but it really starts to build that history of when a password was detected and put out on the dark web. It obfuscates, or it kind of hides part of that password. But if I was Angelo and my password really did start with VOC and whatever the rest of it is, that is a bad thing because that information's out there. And if I use my password, the same password for my email, the same password for my bank, the same password for my 401k or whatever it might be, that's a bad thing because now a threat actor can go buy this information and start poking around on the internet. They might follow your social media page. They might follow Facebook and see some of the things that you do and start trying to utilize that information or that password to gain access to your systems, to steal your identity or whatever that might be. So the report gives you an ability to show when it was published and where it was published. Sometimes we can't disclose what the breach source is, but a lot of times you might see, okay, like this house.com is a very common one, adobe.com, AZ Central, Canva is like a marketing ability to do presentations and things that companies might be using. And the sad part about this is the breached source, you're not always going to know who got breached and when they got breached and what they've done to prevent future breaches. So at some point in time, house.com had some vulnerability that was detected and attacked and utilized to gain access to people's usernames and passwords. And they may have even had their first name, last name, phone number, address. It's a very predominant thing that exists out there. So I don't need to spend a ton of time on that part, but if you look right down here on the how to get protected, so knowing in real time what passwords and accounts have been posted on the dark web give you the ability to be proactive and prevent data breaches. So what we do is we scan this on a 24-hour basis. So every 24 hours we're running a scan. If something new gets detected out there on the dark web, so a new credential got put out there, we're able to alert on that and we're able to respond to that. So that is a huge piece, and we're able to then take action. So maybe we want to change our password. We want to put on multi-factor authentication to give ourselves a little bit better security. There's things we can do proactively with these reports once we find data and information. And then it talks a little bit about email forgery and spamming. So this is a massive way that attackers can pretend to be somebody in your company that they're really not. I might, if I'm an attacker, I may pretend to be the owner of the company and tell you I need you to wire transfer me $120,000 and here's the link to the account. Believe it or not, that happens more commonly in business than maybe you may be aware of, but we have plenty of customers that do that on a regular basis. Wire large sums of money to various vendors or businesses that they're working with. So having some layer of protection and some ability to detect when someone is forging your domain and trying to act, kind of spoof who they are to look like they're somebody that works for your company is a really good thing to be able to identify that and prevent that. So we utilize some technology that we don't need to talk about today, but as you can see here, it's talking about how Ontech should have a couple pieces in place that prevents spoofing, and we do have that. So we do that, and we do that for our clients. So let me switch away from this. If I can click there, and the next piece of this is the Fortify for Network. So this is the compliance piece that I talked about on the 15 ways to prevent cyber attack. One of the most comprehensive solutions that we have to meet critical compliance requirements. This solution, again, is backed by our SOC, and it uses threat intelligence, real-time response, an endpoint sensor, and incident response, incident event monitoring in order to do something about it. So what this does for us is it enables us to provide alerting, reporting, and log retention to not only SMBs, large businesses as well, that need to meet common regulatory requirements. So one of the things for HIPAA, for example, is that you have to show that you're monitoring for user accounts that get created, passwords that get changed, users that might be administrators or be a standard user, but then elevate their permissions on the network. A lot of times that is a regulatory requirement for maintaining compliance. So the value of Fortify for Network, you can read through a lot of the things here. The ability to monitor and analyze is key. Reporting for compliance. So if you have to provide a report for, here are the things that we're doing to protect ourselves and maintain compliance, we have the ability to do that through our Fortify for Network solution. The threat intelligence support, I talked about the SOC kind of working together with us to identify threats and fully integrate and respond to those events. Log retention, that is 100% key. If you look here, we are able to retain the ability to retrieve logs as old as 400 days. So if something were to have happened in the past and you need to provide a report, we can provide logs that help support that report. And I talked about the SIM technology. If you're not aware of the Gartner Magic Quadrant, that is a key thing that we look at when we introduce any vendors into our system. For 10 consecutive years, the software that we use has been on the Gartner Magic Quadrant for SIM technology. And I am going to mute my mic, turn it over to Mark to talk a little bit more about how our SOC operates.
Okay, thanks, Jared. All right, so the SOC. What is the SOC? The SOC is our Security Operations Center. And there we go. Okay, so it is a group of certified professionals that are available, that are monitoring the Fortify environment 24/7. And they don't just sit in front of a computer and play video games. They continually research the bad things that are out there and the things that are impacting our environments either successfully or unsuccessfully, and they continually develop the prevention algorithms and materials and update the environment to better protect your environments or our clients' environments from the bad things out there. So they provide a mitigation, which is preventative maintenance and proactive steps that they take to keep bad things from happening. And they continually update and provide recommendations to the best ways to prevent things from happening and the best ways to secure your environment. When bad things do happen, they are the group that drops everything and investigates what happened and the amount of damage that it may have caused. And when they see potential attacks, they get the applications, the Fortify for Endpoint or the Fortify for Network Event Tracker or Sentinel-1, when those things see a possible attack, the SOC gets an alert, and they are the ones that determine whether or not it's a valid attack or if it's a possible attack, and they initiate steps if they see it as serious enough before the algorithm of the software takes those potential possible threats to the next steps of evolution to prevent those things. So they are working in conjunction with the software that we have or the applications that we provide to add an additional layer of human intervention to keep our clients protected. If an attack does happen, they help us to pick up the pieces and put everything back together, and then they take that event and break it down and dissect it and see what went wrong and see where our tools possibly let things slip by, and then they patch up those holes and make our tools more and more effective. And so they continually work with the companies or the organizations like NIST and HIPAA and compliance environments to make sure that the solutions that we provide are continually updated to provide the maximum protection for those requirements. So, whoops, can you go back? Whoops, I double clicked. There we go. Sorry. So it's 24/7, 365. It's somebody's always there, and I mean, the operation centers. There's a couple different locations around the world, and there are always somebody online monitoring those stations and doing that work. There's over 90 dedicated professionals, and they're certified by CISSP, which is a conglomeration of various technological certifications and requirements and training facilities that provide that or determine those certification requirements. The Department of Defense, the FBI, the NSA, all are involved in training or approving and using the SOCs in those various environments as well. So like I said, before an event happens, they are constantly updating the whitelisting or blacklisting of possible threats or potential threats, and they are updating that static prevention, the environment that is protecting your infrastructures or our clients' infrastructures. They're the ones that are proactively updating and maintaining and increasing the efficiency of those protection levels. If an event happens or something shows up that's outside of those parameters, specifically designed those parameters that are either off or on switches for computers, the human element of the SOC can see those things happen as they happen and take actions to mitigate if, yeah, this really does look like something's going to go bad, or no, this is a false positive. It's something that's actually legitimate. They're there to make those decisions as well. And then if an event does happen, they can help with the mitigation of that and the limiting of the amount of damage that happens. The remediation is the fixing of things that has happened, which includes the rollback, which a lot of the tools that we use together can actually roll your systems back to right before the event happened or that bad click took place. And then forensics after the event, where they can they break down the thing that went wrong, and like I said, they try to put together the reasons why it happened and then patch those reasons and prevent that from happening again to anyone else or anything else in their environment. So that's the gist of what our SOC is and what that operations center has to offer. So now I'm going to hand it over to Robin to finish up with what a security assessment, basically why a security assessment is important to get. Robin?
Thanks, Mark. Can you guys hear me okay? Make sure I unmuted correctly. Am I good to go?
Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
Beautiful. In a nutshell, companies can't simply decide to reduce costs and freeze and not do anything at this point. If you walk away from nothing from today's presentation but one thing, please let it be this. It's pointless to invest in new technologies if the basic measures are not effectively operating first. You don't know what you don't know. I could give you another 15 analogies, but the bottom line is you need to know what is happening in your environment. You need to know what's running. You need to know how it affects everything else you're running. When you make a technology decision, all of that needs to be taken into consideration. It goes way beyond now a solution that's just cost effective or a solution that Joe in IT is comfortable with. It needs to fit your business model and what your business goals are going to be for the next 5, 10 years. Nobody saw COVID. There's nobody that we've ever spoken to in the last couple months that ever saw this coming. That being said, there's been probably a lot of changes that have been done on your network just to make it through the days, just to accommodate that business, the business necessities. At this point in time, a security assessment is even more imperative than it's ever been. You need to be at the very bottom, at the very basic point of it all is that you need visibility into your network. Visibility is going to give you more control, more resilience. You need to know what's happening. There's a lot of different terms that get thrown around with security assessments. Let me try to go to the next slide here for you. Nope. Jared, you want to hit that? You're going to hear a lot of different terms: security assessments, vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, what's a risk assessment. There are many different flavors. Again, instead of reading these all to you, a security assessment is a fundamental way to fight against your security threats, okay? These assessments help to significantly reduce your outside attacks, okay? They also create awareness within your company to what the potential threats are from the outside, okay? You then have the ability to bring down those threat levels to a minimum level of probability, okay? The primary goal in performing assessments and reviews is to find any loopholes and fix existing ones, okay? Vulnerabilities are not just allowing external factors to enter in, but also the other way around, like Mark was saying. Mark and Jared were saying these threats are coming from inside the corporation and outside the corporation, which is why a security assessment where a third party comes in and actually looks at everything and lets you know what's going on in that environment is imperative. Whether you go with us or anybody else, I cannot stress enough how important a security assessment is, especially in this environment after COVID. You need to know what's going on. Again, last analogy, I promise you, you would never build a house without blueprints. You need to know what's going on in your IT infrastructure. This is your corporate data. This is your intellectual property. This is the very essence of your business. So spending a few $1,000s to do an assessment and find out what exactly is running, why it's running, where it's running, who's doing it, and if there's any holes is absolutely imperative. That's about all I've got. I'm going to turn it back over to Jared to, actually, let me interject one last thing. Our contact information will be at the end of this presentation. If there's anything we can do to help you navigate some of these terms, some of these difficult times, I know there's a lot of definitions out there. As IT people, we just assume that everybody speaks our language, but if there's anything we can ever clear up for you, or if we can be a resource for you for education, for your end users, for anything, please just send us an email, call us, anything we can do to help you. It actually, we're all kind of learning how to get through this at this point. So if there's anything, any expertise or any knowledge that we can help you with, we absolutely would welcome any opportunity.
Thank you, Robin. That was some really good information. Thank you, Mark, as well. Now we're going to just take a moment to reflect, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. But before I reflect here, I wanted to just, if anybody does have any questions and answers on my side, hopefully, Robin, Mark, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if everybody has Teams installed or not, or if the web client provides this, but there should be a Q&A, little question mark with a call out box behind it that you can go and type in a question if you have any, and we will address them later. So I wanted to pull that back up quick. So time to reflect. There's a lot of advanced persistent threats going on, and there's a lot that the hackers are doing behind the scenes. So one of the things we need to do is we need to start with evaluating our risk, and that's where that security assessment or pieces of that assessment come into play. Hackers look for targeting roles within a company. So they look to impersonate the accounting department, the HR department, to kind of dupe users or socially engineer them to do something that they shouldn't be doing. One of the things you should be asking yourselves is, do I have compliance requirements? A major takeaway for today should be that there's multiple layers of cybersecurity that we call defense in depth. It's not one solution that fits all. Schedule your security assessment. Robin mentioned how to reach out to us if you need any help during these times of understanding what those terms are, or looking at and evaluating what a security assessment would look like for your organization. And from a business side of things, get some kind of plan together. Whether it's, this isn't a one and done. This isn't you run a security assessment once or you buy a piece of software and you're done. This is a process. This is an ongoing thing that your organization should be looking at, and starting with some plan is better than saying, well, the planning is too difficult. I don't understand. I don't know where to start. I'm just going to give up. Well, if at least you start at the basic layers, what can I do to train my users? What can I do from a policy standpoint and make my employees aware of what's going on? Who do I need to get involved? Who are my major stakeholders? Do I need to get my sales manager, my service manager, my shipping department, my accounting department? Who should be part of that planning? You don't just make it about yourself. If you're the only one that has an interest in this, or you're the only one that sees it as important in your business, try to gain some adoption internally through meetings or through statistics, or share this presentation with them and show them that this isn't smoke and mirrors. This is a real issue that every business of any size across any industry in any part of the world is experiencing. And execute that plan as you start to put it together. You may start with version A, and hopefully you get to version C within a short period of time, but it's going to take time. It's going to take other people within the company to help build that plan and execute that plan and hold everything accountable. And obviously rinse and repeat just means make sure you're reviewing your plan, make sure you're continually identifying gaps in that plan and plugging your own holes internally of what you could be doing. So the last two pieces I have on there are, what are you doing? Because this is what the hackers are doing. They're looking at defining a target. They're finding organization accomplices. They're building tools, researching, testing for detection. They're deploying, they're intruding your network. They're connecting outbound. They're strengthening their foothold in your network even more. And then they're taking data. And then after that, they go and cover their tracks so that you can't even go back forensically and find out what happened. Hacking used to be a matter of visibility amongst friends, like, oh, look what I did. I just took down this person's website, or I got access to this person's password. That is no longer the case anymore. Now it is 100% monetary. It's 100% funded by the fact that you're getting real information that you can sell, and it's become a job. one thing that we didn't mention in the Security Operations Center that I found very interesting when we were first interacting with our Security Operations Center is I learned that hackers used to follow the sun. So Mark talked about how we have certified engineers looking at security across the globe. Well, previously, if I was in India, I would, let me step back. It did not used to follow the sun. Normally in the past, what would happen is if I was a hacker, I'd go to my day job, and then at night I would go and maybe do some hacking and try to see what I can do on the side. Now people have replaced that with their actual jobs. So they're waking up at 7 a.m. They're in the shower, they're starting their hacking day, they're done at 5, and now they go on to their next day and their next victims. And it's no longer a part-time job or just a hobby or just something that they want to do for recognition. It's all about money. And sadly, there are software as a service solutions out there, and I believe Robin posted this on our LinkedIn page, so we're going to show some helpful links later that direct you to our some of the resources and publications that we've put out on the internet. But there's services that people can buy where they don't even have to be knowledgeable hackers. They don't have to know really how to do anything. They can just pay a monthly fee, run a campaign, a real campaign, not like the training campaigns we're talking about, but a real campaign that's going out there and reaching across thousands and thousands of computer users and trying to identify problems, infect them, and then they'll ask for money in return. So that is a scary time for all of us. And let's see here. I mentioned it, that we put some helpful links. Robin mentioned it at the beginning that our event recordings are online on our website. So you can go out there to our website, and we put a link in here to our blog. Make sure to look for myself, Mark, Robin, any Ontech employees out on LinkedIn. We do a fair amount of things on Twitter. We do a fair amount on Facebook as well. And we put a few other links out there that we felt might be important. And with that, scroll down here. We are going to open this up for Q&A. So I'm going to pull over our Q&A section here and see if we have any questions lined up. We've got one here that a quote was provided. Okay, so this is we got an interesting question here from one of our participants who is trying to get some approval maybe from direct decision makers where they want to more or less be reactive instead of proactive. So they don't want to maybe invest in something proactively due to expense. They want to more or less react if something were to happen. And that cyber liability insurance is sufficient without realizing it does nothing to protect or prevent issues. So this person's asking, what's one of the best ways to promote awareness of security to get a chance to at least look at the next step? And Robin, if you or Mark have anything to state on that initially, feel free to. But from you go ahead, Robin. That's you.
Scott, if you need help doing this, it looks like Hope's taking care of you, but I'm sure this is something she can help you do too. We do it all the time. We can put together a cost-benefit analysis for you, something that would, give you something tangible to bring to them in terms of this is how much we would pay for this, and this is what it could cost us if we didn't. That's definitely something we can help you with. Sometimes identifying the biggest gaps in your infrastructure on an informational with an informational position sometimes is a good thing. Kind of approaching it from I'm just reporting this to you. This is a list of our gaps in security by severity, ones that I've seen. At least, it does show you're doing your job and that you're cognizant of the security issues. All you can do is continue to bring it up. I work with people like you all day, every day, and I know that Hope feels the same way I do. If we can help you, quote unquote, sell it internally to the people that are running the business, we would be more than happy to help you do that. Sometimes it's as simple as doing a return on investment, showing them how much they're actually going to pay as opposed to what they're going to get back for that. Sometimes it's having them talk to some other peers in their industry, and we can help facilitate that as well. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, another thing to keep in mind, Scott, is that, and I'm not saying your insurance provider specifically, but one thing that we're seeing is a trend in with the uptick of ransomware and the fact that there are more and more successful ransomware attacks, and people are forced to pay these things out. Insurance providers are asking for more preventative maintenance to be done, or more things to be done to your environment before they will properly or fully insure you from a cyber attack with cyber insurance. I mean, it used to be just an added line onto their list of things that they provide to you as part of your bucket of insurance stuff, because it's just one of those things that we can do, but nobody ever really gets attacked. Well, people are getting attacked now, and insurance companies are having to pay out more and more money, so they don't want to pay out money as easily anymore. So they want you to go through more hoops to make sure that you're as protected as you can be before, and that you got attacked anyway, before they're willing to supplement or pay out the insurance claim. So
that's another, again, not to sound like a broken record, but that's another great opportunity of why a security assessment is so important. We've actually seen clients that have had security assessments, bring them, you can present them to your cyber liability companies, and sometimes you can negotiate some better rates. Back to what Mark was saying, if you show you're doing some due diligence on some of these factors, a lot of people aren't. So if you can prove that to the company that covers you too, sometimes they might work with you on that. Going forward, I truly believe that security assessments on a regular basis are going to become a mandatory item for anybody wanting cyber liability insurance. These companies are going to get burned by people that think that they have controls in place, only to find out they don't.
Yeah, Robin, Mark, those are really good points, and thank you, Scott, for the question, because this is an absolutely difficult question if you're in the position of trying to get the decision makers to agree and to invest. The pieces that you talked about, Robin, we've actually seen that in a couple of our customers recently who were trying to work with an insurance company, and they came back at said customer and said, well, before we'll even insure you, we need to know what you're doing for this, what you're doing for that. We need reports, we need data. We don't just want you to tell us you're doing something. We want to actually see the data, and before they would even insure them. So you're 100% right that not only can you drive your costs down, like Mark said, about doing certain measures that the cyber liability insurance companies want you to be doing to drive that business insurance down and that liability insurance down, but you're right, they may not even insure you if you're not doing basic things.
Right.
And one of the things that I've used in the past, and I continue to use when we're talking to customers about things like this, is what's the cost of doing business? What's the cost of downtime? If you were to lose 2 days worth of work, or your systems were down for 2 days, what's that going to cost financially from a lost productivity? So if you have vendors that you're providing things to and you can't produce those items, if you're manufacturing and you can't make the widgets that you need to make money, if you can't pay your employees, or you're paying your employees to essentially not be able to do any work, what's that cost financially?
Yeah, we can help you quantify that for sure. We absolutely can help you quantify that for sure.
Yep, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robin or Mark, but a lot of times you kind of have to start small. You may not be able to go for the best of best in class or best of breed right away. It may be something like what can we do from a small win perspective that's going to give us a decent blanket of protection to start with. I mean, the desktop care and the server care and the patching and things are definitely very important in that piece. So if we can at least start somewhere with let's make sure we're plugging the gaps a little bit. Let's make sure we've got good antivirus, so we've got good protection in this remote work environment when people are connecting from coffee shops and their house. And I mean, it's just there's a lot of risk involved, and what does that risk cost in not addressing that risk?
And know what that risk is. Again, understand what is going on in your environment, where the holes are. You can't plug holes if you don't know where they are.
Yep. So really good questions there. Does anybody else have anything else to add before we wrap up here? Okay. Well, thanks everybody for your time today. Like we mentioned earlier, we're going to be publishing this webinar and recording on our website. We're going to be sending out the slides. So if that helps with presenting it to the powers that be, feel free to utilize that and show our video. And if Robin or Mark have any last words to say, I'm going to mute myself, and everybody else have a great rest of your day.
I don't have anything to add. I just thank you very much for joining us, and I hope we shed a little light on the security environment solutions for you.
Yeah, let us know if we can help you, and please stay well out there.